Hi, good morning and welcome back to Nutrition Bites. This is the first episode of season 2 and I'm so glad you're here to join me for this. I'm really excited to get into this series with you. So in this series we're going to talk about intuitive eating, about what it is, about what it contains, and try and answer all your questions about it. So in this first episode I want to talk about the BMI or the body mass index and its history, and then we'll have a quick introduction to what is intuitive eating and what to expect in the upcoming episodes. The BMI is the most common way of classifying a person's weight into underweight, overweight, healthy. But unfortunately, it's not a reliable indicator of health. The BMI, or the body mass index, is simply your body weight divided by your height in square meters. So now I want to talk about 7 issues with the BMI. It was devised by a mathematician and not a medical professional. So the BMI was developed in the 1830s by a man named, I'm sorry for my pronunciation here, I don't speak French, but Lambert Adolphe Jacques Quetelet. Quetelet was looking for a connection between body weight and height and death. Very morbid, right? So it was devised to analyze trends, and it was never intended to measure an individual's health. Quetelet himself said it was not intended to measure the health of the individual, but to see if there was a correlation between weight, height, and death rates. Number 2, it doesn't differentiate between bone, muscle, and fat. This is a significant fault that can cause a false reading if someone has more muscle mass than average, or even if they have genetic factors that contribute to a higher or lower BMI. You're most likely aware that muscle weighs more than fat, in the sense it takes up less space. Yes, I'm aware that sentence grammatically doesn't make sense. So someone with significant muscle mass is likely to read as overweight or even obese according to the BMI. Number 3, the formula was designed to fit the data. It doesn't give a reliable result when it comes to someone's body fat percentage. Quetelet admitted that he played with the formula until it reflected the trends he saw. So he was going off what he visualized, the statistics and information he had, and devised a formula to fit what he had in front of him. Number 4, it was based on the average man. It's all about averages. And interestingly, he doesn't even use the term healthy man, but average. And that in itself says a lot about what it is. Quetelet was just looking at averages and numbers. He wasn't gauging whether even the population was healthy. He was just looking for trends because he was a mathematician and not a doctor. Number 5, it was based on a specific population. Quetelet was Belgian, and his study was conducted in Belgium. And as he was looking for a way to gauge the healthy man, it's pretty safe to assume that he was looking at white male Belgians, or I read somewhere else that they were French and Scottish. But regardless, they were white European men. So even if we conducted the same study now, we would most likely have different results because our world has changed. We have people immigrating from different countries. We have people with different genetic factors. We live a different lifestyle than the world of 200 years ago. Number 6, it sets clear lines between ideal, healthy, and unhealthy categories. I'm going to give you an example here, and just a little warning, if it upsets you, I am going to talk about numbers and weights here. My BMI categorizes me as overweight, and yet if I lost just 3 kilos, I would fit within the ideal category. Is that 3 kilos likely to make any difference to my health? No, but that's how the BMI classifies me. And health doesn't work that way. There are no clear lines between healthy and unhealthy. You can't say at a BMI of 24.9 that someone is healthy, and at a BMI of 25 they are unhealthy. That is likely less than a kilo, maybe 2 kilos. Health doesn't work so clearly. There are no black and white lines. I know that we need to set limits we have parameters, and yes, I understand how parameters work. And the constant gaining and losing of a small amount of weight like this is likely to do more damage to your health than having a slightly higher weight. And number 7, health becomes weight-centered and not client-centered. When we judge a person as overweight or underweight and change our medical course of action based on that, that is called weight-centered healthcare. And that's really problematic. For example, you go to the doctor with breathing difficulties and he tells you it's because of your weight. He doesn't check for a chest infection, high blood pressure, or anything else. He just tells you to lose weight. Now, of course, I hope your health concerns have never been dismissed like that, but there are many people that have similar experiences to that. So what's my takeaway from this? The BMI is an old system that is still used in the medical system, even though it is flawed. Why is it still used? It's because it's quick and easy. It's important to remember that the BMI is basically a statistic. Just because your BMI is higher or lower than average does not guarantee you are healthy or unhealthy. So don't take it too seriously, especially if you're not of European descent or living in the 1830s. So if you don't focus on the BMI and the scale, what do we focus on? When we figure out that the number on the scale is likely causing more stress and worry and ultimately damaging our health, we can just walk away from it. We can choose to throw it away if you think that's best for you, especially if you've struggled with constant weighing and worrying about the number. I haven't thrown mine away for practical reasons, weighing suitcases, packages, whatever. But at least pack it away so you can't see it and make a commitment to not use it for a certain period of time. For example, when I first realized my worries and stresses in regards to weight, I put my scale away out of sight and I did not weigh myself for, I think it was around 10 and a half, 11 months. And that was very beneficial for me. And honestly, it felt really nice to not worry about the number on the scale. So now let's talk about intuitive eating. Intuitive eating was developed by 2 dietitians. Again, I apologize if I pronounce these names wrong. Evelyn Trebol and Elise Resch. So it was developed back in the 90s. I'm going to put a link in the show notes for Amazon in Australia or somewhere you can buy it in Australia. And I'll also put the one for Amazon in Germany. I really would recommend you take a look at the book. It has got some really valuable information in there. It's really helpful to just understand the concepts in more details and resources. Intuitive eating is the idea that your body knows what it needs and all we need to do is learn to listen to it. I know it sounds really simple, but I'm sure you're thinking there's no way this actually works. So when I first came across this idea, I was really skeptical about it too, because I'd tried pretty much every kind of fad diet you could think of. Some of them lasting like 24 hours, like keto. No thanks. So now I want to talk about some questions you might have and I had when I first found out about intuitive eating. My first question was, is this scientifically backed? To date, there have been more than 90 studies that confirm the concept of intuitive eating is beneficial to the health of the individual. These show a more stable weight, they show a wider variety of foods being consumed, also a higher quality of food being consumed, meaning food of a higher nutritional density, as well as general improved health outcomes and lower stress levels. Number 2, can anyone do intuitive eating? Yes, the majority of people can follow intuitive eating as it's suggested in the book. There are some exceptions and some people that cannot follow intuitive eating to the T, such as people with illnesses that disrupt the digestive system and affect the hunger and fullness signals. But even those people can follow intuitive eating on some level with some guidance, like setting structured meal time or focusing carefully on how food makes them feel physically. For example, someone with, say, irritable bowel syndrome can still follow intuitive eating while being very aware of their trigger foods that are likely to upset their digestion. Someone with diabetes will have to follow some structure and guidelines, obviously due to health reasons, but I do believe, and it has been shown by many others, that it is possible to follow intuitive eating for the majority of people. However, I would suggest if you do have any sort of illness that affects how your body responds to foods, please see a dietitian and your doctor before you try and do any of these things. Number 3, if I'm not focused on weight loss, how do I measure success? Well, there's a lot of ways we can do that. We can measure success through things like stress levels, energy levels, performance in sport and exercise, sleep quality, blood tests. And for me, the main thing was I noticed my energy levels and stress levels were the big ones that changed for me. Number 4, when I just eat cookies and cake and lollies all day long. A lot of people think this, and I can see how that may happen for a season, but intuitive eating is much more than just eating what sounds good or what tastes good. This is an understandable concern that many people have when they start intuitive eating, but listening to your body is much more than just eating what you feel like in the moment or what sounds good right now, though this is an important factor. It also means paying attention to how food makes you feel physically and emotionally. For example, eating a block of chocolate for dinner might sound good to the tongue, but is likely to make you feel bloated, lethargic, and probably induce nausea, acid reflux, and some pretty uncomfortable physical systems. So you could eat a balanced dinner and then enjoy some chocolate on the side, but likely in a much smaller quantity because you're not physically hungry. Number 5, won't I just put on heaps of weight? This is a complicated question. Yes, you might gain weight. You also might lose weight. And it's possible that your weight won't change much at all. Intuitive eating follows the set point weight theory. The idea that the body has basically a pre-programmed and desired weight, and it will fight to stay about that weight. Though intuitive eating does not focus on weight loss, I understand your concern, and I don't want to dismiss it and be like, who cares? I understand that most of us have been told our entire life that weight is key to health. And number 6, what about nutrition and exercise? So these are important factors when it comes to intuitive eating, but intuitive eating is set up with a framework of 10 principles, and nutrition and exercise are the final 2 points. And I will explain why these are put last and not first in the coming episodes. These things are important factors when it comes to intuitive eating, but they're included at the end of the framework, as these things can often result in people falling back into a diet mentality of having to instead of choosing to or wanting to eat nutritious foods and exercise. So yes, these things are also included, but again, they're not focused on weight loss, but rather on how things make you feel physically and mentally. So we use terms like gentle nutrition and joyful movement. The aim of these things is to care for your body without the strict rule of diets. So I'm going to end the episode now as we're almost out of time, but I want to encourage you to look at the show notes. I'm going to put some links down there to research, to various resources that might help you if you have some more questions. I hope you found this helpful to take a critical look at the BMI and its history and purpose and the flaws that it presents. My personal opinion is that the BMI tells us very little about the individual's health, so we don't want to put too much weight on it. And in talking about what intuitive eating is, I hope it put your mind at ease with some of the questions I've answered. I'm aware that intuitive eating goes against what most of us have been taught almost our entire lives. If you have any further questions, feel free to email me, or you can send me a DM over on Instagram. And my Instagram handle is in the show notes, as always. So thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate your support, and I hope you find this podcast really helpful. Next week, we're going to talk about what is diet culture and shifting your mindset. Until then, have a great week.